so much for taking time to talk to us ahead of EduFest 2026. The Meet the Speaker series is intended to give us a glimpse into who you are as an individual rather than what you do professionally. So let's get started with maybe your name. Who are you? What's your job title? What does that entail?
My full name is Eliana Marcenaro Goldfarb. I am born and raised in Peru, and then I moved to the US to do my studies, and then I've worked in schools in Boston, in Peru, in the Caribbean, and 2 different schools here in Switzerland. I wear several hats. One of them is as teacher for the IB mother tongue students of Spanish literature. So I do Spanish A literature, higher and standard level. I also teach TOK, and I am the head of teaching and learning here at Institut Le Rosé. What that entails is that I support the school in leading a series of professional development initiatives, including working with the curriculum, working with assessment, working with different departments. I like to think of our professional development program here at school working at 3 different levels. So we have the school-wide goals. The inset might launch a goal. For example, currently we're looking at our assessment policy and its implementation. But then we move to smaller group initiatives that could be department-wide or could be at the collaborative network level, which invite teachers to work collaboratively in a smaller project. And then we also have individual professional development. So I am part of all 3 levels, from the design to the implementation and then to the support mechanisms, so that all teachers can thrive at the school for the benefit of students.
How did you get to this position? Was professional development always something that you knew you wanted to do alongside teaching, or was it something that kind of developed over time?
I've always been interested in adult education and adult professional development. That is true. When I did my master's in pedagogy and curriculum, it was always with the idea of developing cultures within schools where everyone is a learner. I have worked in IB schools all my life, and this idea of the learner profile and having every member of the community be lifelong learners and work towards the improvement of society is something that I feel very strongly is part of our responsibility as educators, and I take that to heart. So it has always been part of my intention to support teachers in feeling like lifelong learners and feeling motivated about their professional development. The position at this school originally was more administrative. The school is very generous with the professional development budget, and there was somebody that oversaw and made the connection and made some suggestions to teachers and other staff members. And then when Christophe Gudan took the leadership of the school, he created a position called a responsable de la formación professionnelle, specifically to oversee professional development. I applied for that job. I was thrilled to have it. And for 3 years, developed the idea of the collaborative networks and the professional learning plan and some of these school-wide initiatives. And then my job naturally grew to also look at curriculum and transitions between years and support to staff at different levels. And so that's why now the title is Head of Teaching and Learning. And it's a great opportunity to see all the different facets of the school, especially a boarding school where so much of what we do is interconnected between boarding, between activities, classroom, outside the classroom, inside the classroom, weekend plans, etc., and how it can all be well tied together. I think it really needs somebody to oversee that. So it's great to be part of that process.
What do you do when you're not thinking about teaching and learning? Is there something, which I'm assuming takes up a lot of your time? Is there something that you like to do to disconnect and reconnect? Do you dance? Do you sing? Do you read? Do you watch movies? Tell us a little bit about who Eliana is outside of teaching and learning.
You've hit all of them. I love to read fiction. I'm a teacher of literature, but I also like to read fiction for pleasure. I watch more than movies. I watch educational videos. So there are a number of um, podcasts that I listen to or videos of interviews with current thinkers that I find really fascinating. And I watch that. I really love nature videos. So David Attenborough and anything that has to do with watching animals in situ, I think is fascinating. For fun, I love to dance. Switzerland is not the easiest place to find dance spaces for people that are older than 20. So I teach a Zumba class 3 days a week, and that lets me channel my energy and my desire to engage with music that way. I also sing. I sing classical, jazz, pop, and Latin American music. I play the guitar. I go for long walks. I practice yoga.
What's the last album you had on repeat, or the last song you had on repeat?
Unfortunately, that would be my Zumba playlist because I'm still memorizing the choreographies, if I have to be completely honest. But also, there's a series of podcasts now. The conversation around menopause is becoming really important, and there are some excellent podcasts out there that really explain what happens to women's bodies and why it's important to be ahead with current research. So health is very important to me, and that's been on my mind a lot recently.
What can EduFest attendees expect to learn about or hear about during your session?
My session has to do with a really interesting exploration that our staff has been doing this year. So, with this beautiful new building that we call Philo, we have looked at the interplay between people, place, and pedagogy. So, even though we were involved in the process of discussing with the architect what we wanted learning to be like in this space, until we actually inhabit this space, it's very difficult to predict. So we've been looking at questions of how do we use space within our classrooms, but also how do we use all the space that Philo provides. There are so many different spaces that one can work with, and how can we use a space within our campus in creative ways to support concrete learning objectives. So I'm going to be sharing what the school's path has been in this process, how teachers have been involved, and have some questions for reflection to discuss with the participants, which they can then take on and apply in their own school setting.
What would you say to someone that thinks, well, my school doesn't actually have a lot of creative spaces or empty spaces. My school hasn't renovated the teaching spaces in a while, so maybe this isn't so relevant to me. What would you say to them?
I would say that maybe some of our teachers also started with a feeling, I'm in a classroom, why should I change, or what is the point about changing? That it's really about not so much about the answers, but about the type of questions that you pose. So when you have the opportunity to reflect, this is the learning objective, even something as simple as, is this classroom set up the most conducive to that activity? Why do we need our students, for example, in a debate? Why do they need to sit in any fixed setting, whether it's a horseshoe, whether it's in islands, whether it's in rows? What is the intended outcome? If I'm looking for a very creative output from the students, maybe I can generate creativity by pulling them in a completely different location. If I'm looking for them to work collaboratively, maybe I can get them all to stand up and move around. So the type of questions that we can develop as a mindset for how we approach learning objectives is what I would like to encourage, more than think about this physical space in your school. I think great teaching can happen anywhere in different conditions. We see it in schools around the world that are very successful, whether their resources are unlimited or not. So it's more about the mindset and getting teachers to be curious about how they use space differently.